popularity of vintage fashion has increased massively over the last few years. A 2020 report from second-hand sales platform ThredUp estimated that by 2023, the resale market will account for 10% of the total retail market. Nicola Chinn, owner of Pret A Vintage, started sourcing her pieces in 2009 and believes people are becoming more aware of the damage fast fashion has on the planet.
I think nobody realised in the past how damaging clothing production was for the planet, and now it's, as people have become aware, they're obviously moving away from fast fashion, and it's a quality thing as well. I mean, the problem is once you've dealt in vintage and you've touched it, seen the quality and seen the construction, even from things that didn't cost much money when they were made in perhaps the 60s or the 70s, those things are such better quality than the stuff you get on the high street now. A lot of the fashion has been recently overtly 70s and 80s, your sort of prairie dresses, which has come, as obviously the designers have been influenced by the likes of Lauran from the 70s, and there's lots of big sleeves and puffy shoulders, fitted bodices and full skirts with layers. That's very much influenced by the 70s. The designers have used it, and then that means that people are looking for vintage that looks like the stuff that's in the shops at the moment. So so that vintage has influenced the creation of the modern day garments, which then inspires people to buy vintage as a cheaper and better way of having a current look. It's great that youngsters, sort of teenagers, have discovered vintage. I mean, I remember playing in my grandma's closet when I was a kid, and putting her shoes on and putting her coats on and stuff like that. And I think we all sort of tend to go through that. But now it's great to see so many youngsters, and it's not just that they're buying and selling as well. They're buying vintage, but they're also reselling it when they don't wear it, which is really good. I know a lot of youngsters now who instinctively go in charity shops, where you get some people who are like, oh no, I'm not buying my clothes in a charity shop. And it's like, well, actually, it's a great way to buy clothing for youngsters who haven't got much money.
Nicola also talked me through some of her favourite pieces that she has at the moment.
Silk print dress, probably from, I was told it was from 1939, so by Sydney End of New York, pure silk, hand printed, and it's just the movement in it. It's quite tiny, it's for a tiny person, probably about size 6, but just the detail and the ruching here under the waist, and just the way it moves, it's going to look amazing on a body. Things like this little Edwardian dress, I mean, it's not particularly the weather for it at the moment, but they're getting harder to come by in good condition, so it's really nice and they're just such beautiful details, and the thought that, it would have been hand done, and just in the fact that it survived such a long time. This is a Eastern European embroidered shearling waistcoat, and that's all done by hand. I mean, you just probably couldn't get that now unless you were buying something for many thousands of pounds from a design house, one of the big design houses.
A crucial element of vintage fashion are the vintage fairs such as Frock Meet, which has been running since 1997.
Vintage fairs are really key in giving access to the very small micro businesses of crazy people like me. For the customer, being able to go to a vintage fair like Frock Meet and know that the work curating and getting the people there and they're like selecting the dealers that are going to give the best cross section of vintage and the best sort of display, if you like.
I dived into the middle of the Frock Meet Fashion Fair to speak to Louise, owner of Hope and Harlequin, which was voted one of the Telegraph's best vintage shops in Britain in 2020.
Frock Meet is fantastic. It's really, it's such a great fair, and it always does such a buzz. So many people come through the door who are absolutely just appreciating what we're selling, and you collect like crazy for it as well. So you always bring your best pieces, to all the London fairs, and you get people who are really dedicated to wearing vintage and like wearing sustainable fashion, and they want something different and special. It's not like the high street. You can't just go onto the high street and buy this kind of stuff usually, and it's quite a niche market, and there's not a great number of people who do it, so it brings together all of those things.
Vintage fashion seems like it is a trend that is certainly here to stay. This is Lauran O'Toole reporting for South West Londoner.